think we sort of covered a fair bit there of your school days, and I'm going to move on and to something that used to happen here in Castledermot, and maybe I don't care who starts. Maybe Michael, I'll get you to start on it. But there was missions. The missions used to be held in Castledermot.
The missions, yeah. I have bits of memories of them. Not great, really. There used to be a men's mission and a women's mission, and there'd always be a tough preacher and a lad that wouldn't be as tough. I don't remember that much about them. Everybody had to go to confession whether you wanted or not, and there'd be stalls outside selling holy pictures and that sort of thing. But I don't have a vivid memory of the missions, really. The memory that I have of the church would be we were all trotted down every Saturday morning for confession.
Right.
And if you moved at all, you were in bother.
Yes,
but,
yeah.
Other than that, I haven't any great memories. Tommy might have more memories of the mission.
How about you, Tommy?
I remember them well, yeah. There was always a couple of priests, but one guy would be on, and the other guy would be touring the town looking for see who hadn't turned up for the mission. And I remember myself, I would have been young at the time, maybe 12, 13, that age group. I'd be down in the green playing football with the men. Well, not playing football with them, but kicking the ball when they go out. All of a sudden, they'd all scatter. Because the guy who was patrolling the town, the second missioner, he'd be coming down to see him coming, and they'd run. But I didn't have to because I was under 14. I didn't have to go to the mission.
Right.
But everybody else ran down the river road. That's the power they had, you know.
Yes.
But they'd be ranting and raving, you know. I don't know. Didn't do any much good, did it?
Probably not.
No.
Probably not. And your memories, Kathleen, would that be something similar?
Yes, it would really. You know, the week for the women, the week for the men, and all of these little stalls selling the religious objects. And the missioner would bless those at the end of the mission. Anyone had anything for blessing, he'd hold them up and they'd bless them. But without doubt, they would put the fear of God in you. If they were to say now what they were saying then, they'd be ran out of the town. And that's for sure.
Yes, definitely, I suppose.
Yeah,
and
frighten the life in you.
And do you remember them, John? Do you remember the missions?
Yeah, I was an altar boy at that time with the missions. And when the sermon would start, you'd be on the altar, you'd be out. And for the sermon, the instruction, or what to be talking about then, we'd have to leave the altar and go inside while this was going on.
Right. You weren't allowed to stay on the altar?
No, we weren't allowed, no. It was serious stuff that time.
Right.
Serious stuff.
Might even be talking about sex, John, right?
We're talking a lot of things.
That's it. We mightn't touch, Tommy, on the story you told us the other night about the mission and the man at the back of the church.
Probably not.
No,
I wasn't. I was warned about that coming here tonight.
Were you?
I was, yeah.
So
I wasn't allowed to tell that story at Thomas's wedding, so I don't think it. So when I wasn't allowed to tell it then, I can't tell it now, can I?
We'll
if anybody wants to hear it privately afterwards, I'll be hearing confessions outside.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
That's it. A big thing here in Castledermot was the cinema.
Oh God, yeah. Peter Murphy and the cinema. Great man.
Tell us a bit, Tommy, about Peter Murphy and the cinema.
Twice a week, cinema. But at least twice, the films would be on, different films, and Peter was a great character. And I think it was his sister, was it, or his mother? We used to collect the money, and his brother would also be there, Willie. And if Audie Murphy which he often was in a Western that time, and your name was Murphy, you got in free. Peter says. Peter would be going around with the flash lamp, and he was a great character. He had been in America for a long time. That's why he was. He played the trumpet sometimes during the intermission. He'd get up and bang away at the trumpet. But he was a mighty man in Castledermot. And every year, Stephen's Day, I'd say every penny he made during the year, we'd all go down, every kid in the town. And every kid in the town got a present. I say it was everything he made. Because there weren't just Mickey Mouse presents, they were great presents. I remember having a ray gun, a kind of a space gun. It was a flash lamp. I had it for years and years after. It was a real good. But Peter spent everything on it, you know.
Yes,
He was one of Castledermot's great. Him and Mick Byrne. Mick Byrne was another great Castledermot man.
Yes, yeah.
Mick doing the marquees and the.
Yeah. We'll come back to Mick later on.
Peter was, and I was at. Peter was a fantastic Castledermot man, but then he moved away when he retired, and I was at his funeral. Wasn't half a dozen at it.
God.
So you're soon forgotten.
Yes, yeah.
And you're gone.
Yeah.
Dr. Dyer was a great Castledermot man, years and years, a lifetime. I was at his funeral. There wasn't a dozen at it.
Right.
So you're soon forgotten.
You're soon forgotten.
Yeah.
Eating bread is soon
Keep that
forgotten.
in mind.
Yes, yeah.
A lot of people like that, you know, you're just forgotten about.
Yeah. And
we're all the same. When we're gone, we'll be forgotten.
oh, that's it. And Kathleen, in the cinema as well, not only was there film shown, but I believe it was a great place for operas.
Oh, operas,
Oh,
yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
really was.
Great. And there were real good quality operas, you know. There were what do you call it? What was the name of them? Who was the... Miss Seal Drawers was the...
Gilbert and Sullivan.
Gilbert and Sullivan, that was it. Yeah. But all the uniforms would be down. Everything would have to be perfect. It'd be brought down in heaps, and it was a top-class opera.
Yes.
And great singers locally.
Yeah,
Remember Philip Hennessy and Sister Patricia.
Peter Thornton.
Peter Thornton, Mary Thornton, Jane Hennessy, Mary, Tim Kilbride, who we were talking about. He was a very, very good singer. He had something good going for him.
Yeah.
Right, John? Do you remember him singing? John is going to sleep.
yeah. Yeah.
I remember the opera, all right.
Yeah.
But there were great occasions, and people would come from all over.
Yes.
There was a guy called Seal Drawers or something used to direct him. We used to call him Steel Drawers. Seal Drawers, isn't it? Yeah. Carlo, yeah.
Dr. Seal Drawers, he was a musical director in the cathedral.
Right, the cathedral, yeah.
So he used to come out and direct the operas.
Yeah.
And would they put on an opera, is it once a year, or was it more
Yeah,
often,
it's probably once a year,
Once
I
a
think.
year,
Yeah, an annual thing, yeah.
And get good crowds going to it
Huge.
Oh, big
from all
fan.
over.
Huge.
All
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
All over
Yeah.
Leinster.
Yeah.
Really
isn't
top.
that
Like they
amazing?
did ones like the Pirates of Penzance, the Gondoliers, all Gilbert and Sullivan stuff.
Fantastic.
Very, very good. I mean, they were amateurs, but it was like professional. It was so good.
And isn't it really sad, like, to think that we had all this in Castledermot, you know, and people hadn't got a lot of money and that all back then, and all that has gone.
Yes.
You know, and
yeah.
people nowadays are saying, "Oh, there's nothing to do. There's nothing to do. There's nothing to do."
Yeah.
And you know, going back those years, like, you know, there was so much going on in Castledermot.
And to get back to Peter Murphy and the cinema again, he also used to have travelling road shows. They would come in the winter time.
Yeah.
And they were always super and really, really well attended. And another thing that was maybe overlooked a bit, Maggie Marr used to work for Murphy's.
That's right.
And she was
yeah.
always down at the cinema. She'd take the money or she'd be taking
That's
the
right,
tickets.
yeah.
If she wasn't taking the money at the cash desk, she'd be taking your ticket as you went further down. She was there, you know, and the cinema, the films were Wednesday night, Friday night and Sunday night. And Tuesday night was a dance, which was a great occasion. The dances were really good, they were great. You used to come from far and near to them. And during Lent, the only place there was a dance in, I think in the country,
That's right.
was in Castledermot in the cinema.
And that was because we were in the Dublin diocese.
Yeah,
Everything
it would
else
be
around us.
packed. They'd come out from Carlow, from
One for the parish.
further afield. It was absolutely great. Great. It was great memories of nights, you know, at the dances down there and the films.
So because you're in the Dublin diocese, you were able to have a dance during Lent,
Yeah.
where Kildare and Loughlin wouldn't have been able
That's
to.
right, yeah.
Right.
We were Dublin.
Yeah, and I think Osprey couldn't either. So
Right.
We were at the butt end of the pale. Used to be concerts down there too. You were talking about all sorts of concerts.
yeah,
I remember Joe Green. Joe was a great character in the town. He was a comedian. Well, he was a county councillor, and he was a comedian, and he was a barman.
a barman in Dials.
In Dials,
Yeah.
he used to wear a cap. He organised a strike down in Kilkee.
Yeah.
He was a great
That-
labour man.
Very famous strike.
Very famous
Plaque-
strike. He got the
plaque
half
down
day.
there in his memory.
He got the half day. But I'll tell you a story about Joe Green now. He was the councillor. So there was a general election coming up. And Joe was the obvious choice to go for a TD, you know. And the convention, whatever you call it, was held in the Seven Oaks, Crofton, whatever it was that time, maybe something else before that. But Joe was in there, everything was all set, you know. And at the last minute, headquarters parachuted this guy in to stand, TD. And of course there was uproar. God, it was terrible scandal. Well, it's before my time. But it was a terrible thing to do, because they must have reckoned Joe mightn't do it, you know, mightn't get the votes. So they brought in this guy from headquarters, or wherever he came from. But I heard a story that Joe was out in the foyer at the hotel afterwards anyway, and his supporters were all around him, and it was a terrible thing to do. And Joe, that was terrible, Joe. It was terrible. Joe agreed with him, of course. It wasn't. He was shocked. And then he shook himself a bit and he said, "Tell you what now, men and women, what happened in there today," he says, "was the greatest betrayal since the Jews preferred Barabbas." That's the way Joe put it.
And that was that. Like
That was that. That was the last word on it, poor Joe.
Right.
Joe was a great character.
So the seating and all then in the cinema, you must have been able to just lift that back up if you had dances and everything else.
Well, the dances were held in the front part, and they were all benches, because that was the cheap piece. When you went in, it was only 4p or whatever was in there. And then the back part was all the nicer seats.
That's right.
And the very, very back, the very back row were all double seats.
That's right.
So when Peter would see somebody coming along, you know, with their girlfriend or their whatever, he'd be directing them up and into these seats. And that was the dearest place. I can't remember what it was. It was maybe 2 shillings or something to go in there and shilling into the ones in front.
Right.
And whatever, 6p or 4p into the pit, as we called it.
Into the pit, yeah.
Kathleen, if those seats could talk.
My God, Tommy, they tell some stories. I hope they don't get a voice anytime soon until I'm gone.
Oh, very good. I won't ask any questions now about that. We'll move swiftly on.
You might be shocked.
Like we said earlier about people going to school. When people left school, and some people left school early, and the work for them, Michael, was on basically lads mostly went in as farm labourers.
Yeah, sure, that was it. And that's the one thing the Kilbride used to say to us when we were going to school. You usually wind up picking potatoes or tinning beet. And he had 4 special lads that he used to teach. Brought them up to one side. Usually be going to secondary school now. And he gave them a special tuition.
Right.
And then one day, a local lad, Paddy Horan, below from the brook, said, "Sir, can I sit with them boys?" And Killer sure he had to say yeah. And Horan went up, and Horan was better than any of them.
Right.
And wound up with a top job in Carlow County Council after. He's dead now.
Very good.
Yeah.
Very good. And the girls who left school, they went work. Most of those who had left would have went working in houses.
Sure, I suppose they would, but the girls, I think, probably got a better education than the lads, because some of them became nurses and that sort of thing. And most of the girls, I'd say, got a convent education, where the lads, I'd say, mainly got a vocational education. Bar for a lad that had a few bob, and he was...
Oh, sure, he went up the road.
He went up the road.
Yeah. Didn't talk to any after he went up the road.
Still don't. Sorry, Mick.
And
No, you're all right.
Then employment in around Castledermot, back in the years, like Cope's was a huge employer.
Yeah, Cope's would have been the big one in the area. David is here, and David knows all about it. They had a bakery, they had a hardware, they sold farm machinery, they sold beet harvesters, they had a grass meal plant. You know, they were the Cope's and Hennessy's Garage were the two big employers. Hennessy's Garage was the same. Like Hennessy's Garage had Austin Agency, and they had it for 3 counties, I think, Kildare, Laois and Carlow. And they would have sold a car to every parish priest in them counties.
Right.
And the first car they would have bought would have been an Austin 7, and then they would have graduated to an A40, and that would have been followed by a Cambridge. So they were the big employers. But the big farms were the same. Like when I started farming, I started with a beet harvester pulling beet for hire, and I pulled in rights of Pumpetstown. And there was 12 and 14 men down there at that time working in rights of Pumpetstown, and a farm steward as well. And all the big farms, Sharon's grandfather would have been the same. There would have been a lot of employment. So it was the big farms or Hennessy's or Cope's.
That was where the work was.
Yeah.
And I suppose it brought some good people to the town as well, and some good people went through and went through these places. Yes, Tommy.
I think it should be mentioned. There was a great character called Luke Carty in Castledermot years ago. He was Ho Chi Minh, they used to call him. He was an admirer of Ho and Mao and these people. But I remember him saying, not because David is here tonight or anything, but he knew it as a fact. He was a smart guy. He knew what had gone on years ago in Castledermot. I remember telling my brother John and myself one day that if it weren't for Sam and Arthur Cope, a lot of people in Castledermot would have gone hungry. They fed half of Castledermot.
Yes, yeah.
So that should be known. A lot of people wouldn't know that now, David.
Yeah. It's great to have the opportunity as well, Tommy, to be able to say that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and to acknowledge.
If that generation are gone, they wouldn't remember anything about it, you know.
Yes, yeah, yeah.
It was handed on by Ho Chi Minh.
Right, yeah. And John, I'm going to come back to you there if you're still with us, and I'm going to talk about Horan's Garage, and Horan's Garage, which we still have in the town today, and ran very successfully down there at the minute by Evan, and but Horan's Garage didn't start, John, where it is now. It started further up the town.
My father came south from Bale, and that's where he came, and his 3 brothers came to Castledermot, and they came with a horse and car, and they used to do the post to a tie in a horse and car, and eventually anyway he started into bicycles, selling bicycles, and then moved down to where we are down, built down there in 1940, and doing hackney business that time, cars that time. And a lot of people that time, when they left school, right, there was nothing for them then, only England. There was no work. And I remember when I started driving first, I was bringing people to Dublin to go to England. It cost a £5 that time to bring them up to Dublin to get the boat to go to England. And that's all the people. There was no work. Apart from Cope's, a great employer, but the rest went to England.
And then, John, what happened, like you say, you brought them to England and they went to England, but they never came back. They never came back until their latter years. It wasn't like somebody nowadays and they go to England to work, or they go to people going to Australia and everything, and they're coming home on holidays. But when you went to England back then, you went to England.
They went to England, yeah. My brother, there was about that time, my brother Michael, he was about 10 or 15 going to go to Australia on a trip to Australia. and it cost £10 to get to Australia. He went to England, and it took 6 weeks to get to Australia. And Michael and my brother Michael and Harry Green, those are the only two that went out there that time, out to Australia. And it took 6 weeks to get to Australia on the boat that time.
That's when you think about it, I suppose it was no wonder they didn't come back really. Like it was life changing.
Well, they went out in contract, and they were out there for 2 years. And Harry reneged on his thing. He wasn't. Michael was ready to come back. He had enough money to come back anyway. And so Harry skipped it anyway, and he wouldn't leave him. So he left. He didn't go back then.
Right.
So Michael ended up marrying an Australian lady out there, and he was out there. He died there about 3 years ago. He was out there for 65 years.
65 years. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And Michael, was it yourself who was telling me about Billy Marr emigrating to Canada?
Billy, yeah. Billy was probably my best friend. He used to live down the fields in the original Dempsey farmhouse, and I remember him in school. I was telling you the other night, Kilbride was always trying to catch Billy. Billy used to have the comic under the desk, and he'd be pulling out the comic, and Kilbride could never catch him. And this day, Kilbride went out through the top door here, down along the corridor, in through the back door, and sneaked up behind Billy. Just as he was reaching him, Kilbride says to him, Kit Carson, Mar. No, sir, Buck Jones. And I never forgot it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
He left school, and himself and Vincent Kelly went to Canada in the early 1960s. And I went in the middle of February, and I remember Vincent telling me that they got a taxi they asked for a taxi to get in to the centre of the city. And the taxi driver said, "Where exactly do you want to go?" The centre of the city, but whereabouts? Well, a hotel. So he brought him to a hotel anyway. So the next morning they went down to the Irish Embassy in Toronto, and the first thing the lad said to him was, "Lads, where did you think you were going in the middle of February and snow on the ground?" Sure, they hadn't a clue about climate or anything.
Yes, yeah.
And the next question he asked them, were they okay for money? So they got on okay. Vincent got a job because he was a carpenter, and Billy got on to the corporation, and Vincent came back after a couple of years, and Billy stayed on.
And still there.
And still there.
And
And
still.
retired now and in reasonable health.
Yes,
And
yeah.
we'd be talking to him now and again. Paul knows all about him.
Yes,
The
yeah.
uncle of Paul's.
And we were talking there earlier. John mentioned there about his father having the Hackney service, and Kathleen, you were telling me as well about Mick Byrne, and like Tommy said, like Mick was a great character in Castledermot, but Mick used to drive for Johnny.
That's right.
And you were telling us about a story about him bringing the ladies from Kilkee Castle to Dublin.
Yes, Mick told me this himself. The ladies from Kilkee would book Johnny Horan's car to go to Dublin every so often, and they would want nobody else but Mick to drive them. So he'd pick them up and he'd take them along, and they would tell him, "We want to go to Cleary's." So he'd drive up. He could pull up outside Cleary's. The ladies would go in. They could be in there for an hour. It didn't matter. He could stay parked there, and everything was fine. Traffic was so small. There was no restrictions on parking or stopping outside. And then they'd go from Cleary's maybe down to McBurney's, and the same thing. And they'd be out all day doing all their shopping, going in and out of everywhere, and Mick would be driving them around. And then he dropped them back to Kilkee Castle, and they always looked after him very well. They would give him a few bob in addition to his payment for his day's work. So he was very happy with that, but he enjoyed doing that, and he had a great time, chatting with them.
Yes, yeah. And Tommy, like you were saying, like Mick was a great man, and you mentioned, and we'll talk a little bit more about now, the marquees on the green.
Oh yeah, that was something else. Yeah. People came from all around. You know, there was a fantastic couple of weeks when they were there. They had everything in them, and well, of course, dances was the main thing. But you were talking about the shows they had them as well, didn't they?
Yeah. But the dances, like he always had the best bands.
Oh, big bands.
I mean, he had big bands. The night Canon Cotter died was meant to be a big dance that night, and it had to be cancelled. So us people who wanted to go to it weren't too happy.
Yeah.
He had the Royal Show
The Royal Show Band was that night.
Was booked for that, which would have been a huge coup for somewhere like Castledermot to get them.
Yeah. No, he used to have, and he'd have some Céilís. He'd have the Gallerglass Céilí Band and maybe some other, like the Kilfenora Céilí Band. He had a great mix of things. And everybody looked forward to these marquees for 1 year to the next. And they'd be packed.
Yes, yeah.
And he had great supervision as well. Like, he used to have some of the local men doing supervision, so there was no nonsense going on. There was no hanky-panky.
Right. There was no back seats in the cinema, like.
Not like back seats in the cinema. It was very well run, and it'd be very well organised.
Yes, yeah. And was Mick involved with the go-kart racing?
He was, yeah.
So he was
And all the money he made that time, he put it into all the pipe band we had. A great band in Castledermot.
Yeah.
And so, someone, you
Yeah,
tell
great
us, Tommy.
band. It was a great pipe band that went all over the country. And I remember he was going to go. At one stage, he had these two big dogs. What's the dogs?
He had two.
Pardon?
T-shirt and Dermot.
T-shirt and Dermot, yeah.
Yes.
And he was at this thing.
Irish Wolfhounds.
He was Irish Wolfhounds. Yeah. He was going to. I don't think they ever did. They were supposed to go to Rome. It's a parade before the Pope at some stage, but I think that was his ambition, but he never got around to going there.
Right.
But he got the dogs all right, and they used to march in front. It was a great band.
Oh, it was.
Big,
it really
big
was.
band, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
As big as there was now around, they'd be hired to go shows everywhere. They'd go all over the country.
Yeah.
Huge
I remember seeing a photo of them, and when they were actually out somewhere, and Mick leading the band.
Oh, he was leading
with
them
the
with staff.
and with the two dogs either side of him.
Yeah,
That's right.
great sight.
It was some great. I'd say just some great memories of the
Great,
pipe
and the sound they used to make coming down the town, you know. Wow.
And the go-kart racing, what was that all about?
That was only a one-off, I think, wasn't it? I think Richard Kinsler was. Richard Kinsler was one of the main people involved, wasn't he?
No, that was a regular. That
Was it regular
took place for
go-kart?
about 5 or 6 years in a row.
Around the River Road.
All around the River Road and the
River
Green.
Road, yeah.
Yeah.
All
Maybe I wasn't
blocked
here
off.
for them.
The top driver down there that time was a fella called Robbie McCartney. He came from Ballymena.
Ballymena,
And I
that's
think he became a politician after.
Yeah.
David might be able to say that. But the local drivers were Lee Maddox out of Carlow, who
That's
used to
right.
work in Armour Salmon.
Yeah.
Richard Kinsella had done
That's
a bit
right.
at it, and Pat O'Gorman from Athy.
Right.
But the pit stop used to be in front of Desdial's yard, the place where he stores
That's
the
right,
sugar
yeah.
beet now at the moment.
Yeah.
And
Remember
it
that, yeah.
took place for 5 or 6 years.
did, yeah.
Right.
And they'd reach ferocious speeds going down
Yes.
the straight on the River Road.
Yeah, I remember.
Yeah.
Very good, very good. And so like we're saying, like, you know, and it's good to mention someone like Mick on a night like this, you know, because he did over the years contribute so much to Castledermot.
Absolutely.
Socializing, folks. We heard about the cinema, and what else used you do back in the day? I heard a mention of Dreamland, and the Ritz in Carlow.
Dens of iniquity.
I know the lad who went to Dublin said something about Kiltegan.
Talk of the town.
Talk of the town.
Yeah. What was the name of it?
Baltinglass.
Over the Barton Glass as well, yeah.
What was the
Like-
name of the place in Bartlas? Fatima Hall, is it? You remember it?
yeah. That's Ben Corcoran here in the audience, just giving Tommy the tip on it.
Ben did business over there, yeah.
Oh, did he? Yeah. So, like, even though transport and all would have been scarce, you were all still able to get around and get to places.
Yeah.
We had bicycles, don't forget.
That's it.
Walked.
Yeah.
Ritz in Carlow, I remember several times walking home.
That's right.
Just couldn't get a lift. Walked from Carlow to Castledermot. No problem, 3 or 4 of us.
Yeah.
Be daylight when we'd arrive home, but sure, didn't care.
Yes.
Young, feckless.
That's it. And did you no harm, Tommy?
No harm, no, but
No.
never had much luck in there, you know.
Yeah.
So the 3 or 4 of us would be coming home sympathising with one another, you know.
Yes. Yeah. About the ones that just got away.
The ones that got away, yeah. Remember my cousin Paddy O'Connell had a girlfriend and she had a car, which was amazing at the time. A girl with a car, you know. So we were all getting lifts home. But next thing Paddy came and said, this is the day we walked. He says, no lift home, lads, it's gone. And I'm gone as well, he says, you know. She said she wasn't there to bring ferry to Castledermot. So poor Paddy had to walk home with us.
Right. Oh,
Late Bill Deverell walked with us that night as well. Horan and Mercy.
Right. We talked.
I remember, sorry,
Yeah.
just going back a little bit further, when the new cemetery opened up there, I was altar by that day. So when that was, you knew when that was, do you, Kathleen? 50 what? 53 or 4? 55, yeah, I was an altar by at that when it opened. That's how I remembered it, yeah. And another thing that I never forgot, although it didn't affect me, do you remember, Lily knows all about the Granny ambush. When that happened a long time ago, I thought it was terrible. The priest came up from my father. He would have been about 15 at the time, to go out with him as an altar boy. He would have been finished as an altar boy, but just barely finished.
Right.
So he's probably the only one he could get. I thought it was horrendous. Imagine a priest bringing a young boy out to where the people have to be killed, shot. He said he took a long time to get over it, what he saw out there, you know.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought the priest should have been ashamed of himself. What was he thinking of?
Definitely. Yeah. You'd wonder, but then I suppose priests did as priests wanted.
Oh, important to have the man there with the holy water.
That's it. Kathleen, I'm going to come to you and just on a personal thing, really. And Michael here was talking about people working in the fields and that. And your mother, my granny, she moved down from Dublin and knew nothing about tin and beats, picking stones or anything else. But out into the fields she went. And,
She did. She didn't know what a field looked like before she came down. But my father's sisters all worked in the field, my aunts. And they used to be at her, come on now, Kitty, come on, we'll show you what to do. And she went with them. Well, I tell you what, she just worked in the fields for as long as I could remember, for years and years and years. For copse of woodlands. And Fred Wright would come looking for her. Yeah. He came to the door one evening, and I do remember this now. He came to the door one evening and I wanted her to go. He said, would you come to work for me for a few days? And she said to him, like, doing what? Picking stones. And she looked at him and she said, picking stones? What in the name of God are you picking stones for? Like, you know, picking potatoes or tin and beat or something, but I never heard anyone picking stones, she said. You know, I don't know, Michael would know more about that, but...
Yeah.
That'd be common because they'd foul a combine harvester or a binder if they picked them up. So the stones would be picked.
Serious damage.
And that time the rollers would be only horse-drawn rollers.
Yeah.
Like now the lads are gone too lazy and they've got big heavy rollers that pushes the stones down. So it's not an issue.
Yeah, because there used to be a cart or something went alongside them and they just threw all the stones in. Because I was very curious when she came back to know what was going on with all these stones. So that was
Right. Brilliant. So did she go and pick the stones anyway?
She did. She absolutely did.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Very good.
She did.
And the trashing, what about the trashings? You remember them?
Yeah.
The trashings.
Trashings, they were great occasions, you know. I remember them well over in Mans. And the women seem to be always up on top with the sheaves.
Yeah, cutting sheaves.
Yeah,
With a knife.
Knife, yeah.
Yeah,
And down.
yeah.
Because I heard a story about my own grandfather down. We came from Kilkenny, Gore's Bridge, and he had a machine, a thrashing machine that he used to rent out to the farmer. You go to different farms, it'd be thrashing day. They'd all help one another. And he told the story that there was always a barrel of porter, barrel of beer at a thrashing for the workers. It was thirsty work. So it was down in the room in the house. The barrel would be put down there, and everybody would go in and help have a few drinks. But the thing about a thrashing machine was that whoever owned it had to be wound down. Do you know more about it, Mick? Couldn't just be turned off, the thrashing machine. It had to be wound down slowly.
Oh, yeah.
Slowly. So everybody would be gone inside and after feeding themselves the food and all the beer, they drink the beer. So more often than not, by the time he was finished fixing up the thrashing machine and went in, there was no beer left. So I got fed up with this. So he went to this thrashing one day, and he said, okay, I'm going to sort this out. So he went in beforehand, and he bought a brand new piss pot. So
Probably got the right size.
he filled it up out of the barrel and put it under the bed. And just to make sure that nobody would touch it, he threw a black pudding into it. So needless to say, the beer was there when he came back in.
It was. He didn't go thirsty that day.
He did not.